All right, so today we're going to explore a little bit. This is called structured word inquiry, or this is, it's an idea of what it just says. It's really taking an inquiry-based approach to studying the structure of the English language. Okay, and so again, the great thing about it is it cuts across grade levels, and also again, it cuts across content areas. Anybody can do this. So. But there are certain features of it that are really important. So what we're going to do is we're going to start today with talking about, of course, some things that are happening in the world today, such as what's going on in Ukraine. Just FYI, I got this from Newsella. It is apparently a text level 6, appropriate for middle school, high school. So just wanted to cite my source there. And it says, "The worst sunrise in my life, Ukrainians wake to Russian attack on multiple fronts." What I wanted to do was, what I would do with kids is read the entire article. We won't take the time to do that. But what I wanted to do was pull out for us, I want us to really look at this particular couple paragraphs here. It says, "I didn't believe it would happen. Elsewhere in the capital, Anna Dovnya watched soldiers and police remove shrapnel from an exploded shell and was terrified. We have lost all faith," she said. "Until the very last moment, I didn't believe it would happen. I just pushed away these thoughts." Many feared Mariupol, the Azov Sea port city in southeastern Ukraine, would be the first target. It has strategic importance for travel and trade. There, journalists reported similar scenes of mixed routine and fear. So what I'd like to do today is kind of explore a few of the words that are in this article. And the first one appears in this sentence right here, and I'll go ahead and read that again. Many feared Mariupol, or however we might say that, the Azov Sea port city in southeastern Ukraine would be the first target. And just to kind of expand a little bit here and kind of orient ourselves as to where we are in the world. We know about Ukraine, but what I wanted to show you was, here's a map of Ukraine, and this starred city right here is what the city that we're talking about here in this article. So what I want us to do is think about this word port. And I want you to just think for a second. Think about the sentence that was in, and I want you to see this picture here. And I want you to think about, what is a port? How might we describe a port? What do you think, Jen?
I'm going to go with something by water.
Okay, I think that's a great hypothesis there. What makes you think that? Does this picture help you with that?
The picture was helping me with that. I was using the picture to determine that maybe Port City had something to do with by the water, on the water.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I know you're not able to see this at the same time, but we also have, if we even look at the next city, it says, or the next sentence, it says it has strategic importance for travel and trade. And it would a port city, a city on the water, maybe be important for travel, right? And yes, therefore trading. Yeah, excellent. So David, can you tell me, what are the graphemes in the word port?
We have P, an O, an R, and a T.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. We've got P-O-R-T. P-O-R-T. Excellent. All right, great. So can anybody think of a port city? I mean, I know we're in landlocked Ohio, and I'm in landlocked Illinois, but do we have maybe a port city does anybody have a port city they can think of? A city that is on the water somewhere? How about somebody in Lisa's group?
San Diego. She said San Diego.
Sure. Okay. San Diego, over on probably where we would all prefer to be right now, over on the West Coast in California. Fabulous. All right, great. So we can kind of have a little connection there. Maybe some people have even been there. All right, here's another sentence that I want us to look at. It has strategic importance for travel and trade. Specifically this word right here, importance. Okay. I want you to think about that and this word importance. What is something of importance to you? Important. What can you tell me about something that's of importance to you, Lauren?
My family would be important to me.
Your family has importance for you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. David, can you think of something else?
Food, water, shelter, those kinds of
Ah,
things.
those are good ones. Yeah. Okay. Fabulous. Excellent. Great. So we have a good idea about that. And then finally, let's look at this last sentence. There, journalists reported similar scenes of mixed routine and fear. Okay. Tell me about a time that you reported something. Lisa's group, can you tell me about a time that you might have reported something?
Today, Mary and I went on some walkthroughs to report back on where we see reading, writing, and discourse in the 912 building.
Absolutely fabulous. So you reported back some information. All right, fabulous. Awesome. Okay, so detour. This is me stopping right now, and I'm not being the teacher to students anymore. I'm stopping to explain to you all the stuff we just did right there. Okay, some instructional strategies. First, wanting to make sure that we're contextualizing words for students in terms of their meaning. And if they don't know what those words mean, okay, that has to be step number one. We cannot typically read or spell words that we don't know what they mean, right? You can't even spell the word pear right now unless I put it in context for you. And rather than saying things like, well, what does port mean? Or what does importance mean? Okay, when we ask that, what answer do we get? Well, you know, like a port. Doesn't every kid just use the word in the definition, right? It's hard to define a word. But just because you can't define a word, like a dictionary definition, doesn't mean that you don't know what it means. And so what I wanted to do there was model for you ways for you to get at, and I will share this PowerPoint with you, by the way, ways for you to get at that same goal, this kid understands, with other ways of asking. For example, can you use it in a sentence, right? Can you give me an example? Somebody gave me an example of a port city. Okay, she knows what that is then, right? She didn't say, you know, Oklahoma City. Can you tell me about a time that you, right? Tell me about a time you reported something. Lisa gave me a sentence, an example that tells me she knows what that means, okay? So all these ones here with the green heart beside them are, again, do you see how those are ways to ask about meaning that aren't just like, what's that mean? What's that word mean? Okay. A lot of our kids, they can't do that. A lot of adults can't tell you a definition without using the word. And the other thing that I want you to make note of right now is that I didn't just ignore quote unquote phonics or phoneme grapheme correspondence. When we looked at the word port, I asked David, tell me the graphemes in that word. And I want you to notice in particular also how I repeated them back to him. He said P-O-R-T. And I said, yeah, great. The graphemes in port are P-O-R-T. And there's a reason why I announced those that way. Because I'm revealing the underlying really phonemic structure of that word as well, because graphemes represent phonemes, right? So rather than just saying P-O-R-T, when I announce graphemes, I announce them as they correspond to a phoneme. Port is P-O-R-T. So the graphemes are P-O-R-T. And so the depth at which you go into that depends on the needs of your kid. And notice that I showed him the word. I wasn't asking David to spell port without looking at it. Just have him look at the word, right? And so you see these different levels of access for kids. So if this was a 6th grade classroom, you very well might have a kid that would spell port P-R-T, right? And so because I know my students though, I could still ask, even the kid that doesn't know how to spell port, I could ask him, how do we spell that? Because he's looking at it. Okay. So another thing to just kind of keep in mind as adults here, and something that you could choose to explore further with kids, is really just the history of English. And so what we're about to discover with this base PORT is that words that surface in English today can all be traced back to a language called Proto-Indo-European. And if we think about that, linguists talk about languages in terms of trees, families, and so the families that belong to Indo-Europe, the Indo-European family tree is this big one right here. And there's like 144 different language trees, all with different numbers of languages on them. You can see the Uralic tree is this little tiny one over here to the right. So that just shows you the differences. Some language trees only have, 7 languages on them. But it's really important to understand that English is quite unique in the sense that as it developed throughout the centuries, that little island where this whole language kind of started was conquered and taken over by lots of different folks: the French, the Romans, the Norwegians, the Norse people, which came through France and then up. So lots of history here. And it's part of the reason why English spelling is sometimes referred to as being crazy or wacky or weird, when really it's just complex, right? There's a whole story behind these words. And so what I want us to understand too is that we can also think about any given word in our language as kind of being like a tree, and we can trace that word's history back to a root. Now, I want you to think about the history. When I say root, can you see the roots of a tree? No, they're hidden underneath, right? But does the tree exist without the roots? Nope. Okay, so I know that the terms base and root in school especially are often used interchangeably, but just so that you're aware, linguists, when they refer to a root, they mean really the word from a whole long time ago, that Proto-Indo-European word, quote unquote, that started the whole sort of thing for this word. So for example, then a base, if you think about the base of a tree, can you see the base of a tree? Yeah, you can, right? It's at the surface. That's what these 2 eyeballs right here are for. So when I say the way that the word surfaces in English today, I'm talking about a base, because we can see it in the language today. Okay, so all of that is important because when we now go back to show our students that we're going to specifically study this PORT thing that we see in all 3 of those words, we're going to dive deeper into the meaning. Okay. All right, so we're off the detour now. We're going back onto the road. All right, everybody. So I want to share with you first, if anybody noticed, first of all, something that was the same about port, importance, and reported. Did anybody notice anything you noticed about those 3 words? Port, importance, reported.
P-O-R-T.
Ah, interesting. I like how you said that, Mr. Hensinger. P-O-R-T can be found in all of those words. That is exactly correct, right? Here's P-O-R-T. And anyway, yeah, now I'm mixing my Zoom with my other thing, and that just doesn't work. So anyway, yes, all of them have P-O-R-T. Fabulous. So let's explore that a little bit. And you could have either done this as a teacher, by the way, previously, or you could even, I can show you how to kind of find this stuff um, with your students as well. But for right now, for the purposes of time, I just want to show you that there actually are, we explored a little bit about the meaning of some of these, the words port. We're going to kind of see if these words are related in meaning, reported, importance, and port. And when we do some research, we can see that actually that there are three sort of different forms of the word, of the base, P-O-R-T. And what I'm showing you here is, if we think about, remember that tree that I showed you, right? And we talked about how languages kind of several languages can blossom or grow from the same root. This is what we're talking about right here, okay? Is this Proto-Indo-European root, P-E-R, which meant to lead or pass over. And then that, again, through many different variations, came into English to mean really three different things: port or harbor, to move or to carry, and a gate or a door. So what I want to do now is keeping these three sort of connotations in mind. Where do we think these three words belong? So, and again, if I could, like, probably the students would have a copy of the article so they could refer back to it. But what do you think? Somebody in Lisa's group, can you pick one of these: reported, port, and it was actually importance, wasn't it? Where do you think one of them might go?
I think actually all three. I lean toward carry because something that's important, it holds weight. It's important to you. And then if you report something, it's transferring information, it carries information. And a port, in terms of carry, like transferring goods. So there's movement and transportation. And I don't know, I lean toward carry for all three.
Yeah, okay. I think that is I hear you. I think that if we stretch, it's a great hypothesis. I think if we really stretch the limits sort of what we consider to move or to carry, I'm with you. So you mentioned something about carrying something of importance. It has this feeling of weightedness to it, right? Like we're carrying this information. Same thing with reported, I think you had mentioned, right?
Yeah.
And we might even eventually peel away some suffix there and think about maybe again or back. Okay, and potentially we could put port here too in your description. I like it. Any other hypotheses about where these words might go?
I would move port to the harbor or port because of the way that it's talked about in the text. But I agree with her like reasoning, but because it's a port city and I know it's a harbor city based on the other document, I would move it for this.
Okay. Maybe we could slide this potentially over there. Yeah, I mean, it has the word port right there in the definition there. Okay, great. Did we have one that would refer to a gate or a door? I don't think, not yet, but I think keep in mind that could be another P-O-R-T could be another base for words that are built that mean gate or door. So speaking of that, let's start to hypothesize some more words. And that's what these blank ones are for, that might also have this base P-O-R-T. What other words do we think we can build that have this as a base?
Export.
Export. Okay. And David, where's your hypothesis for that one? Where do you want that one to go?
Move or carry.
Okay. And then Jen, did you have one?
Yeah.
Oh, support. Okay. SUP. P-O-R-T. Where do you want that one to go?
I would have that based upon the weight of importance, like we did with move and carry, maybe there.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Deported. Oops, sorry.
Oh, okay. Deported. Okay, great. What do you think, David?
I don't know. I think you get deported, you get shown the door.
Yeah. So you're thinking maybe here.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
obviously moved too. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're starting to kind of see what Mary, I think in the beginning, as we started sorting these, saw that there's certainly some overlap where we can see this, again, the sense, not necessarily the explicit, definition, but the sense of a doorway, or if you come to a door, what you move through it, right? You go through it, and if you could land on the port, but then you also have to then to come into the land, you got to transition from sea to land. Good. Any others?
Tim says portal.
Portal.
And
Okay.
he puts it with the gate and door.
Yeah, perfect. I like it. Certainly kids know about portals from video games and whatnot, I'm sure. So great. Awesome.
Portrait.
Ooh, portrait. Huh. Did I spell that right? Yeah. Okay, good. Where do you think that goes? What's your hypothesis?
I have no clue.
Ah, okay. Well, we can have this little question mark area, kind of keep it down here maybe.
Somebody else has a.
Anybody
idea.
else think about portrait?
I say move or carry because it moves a picture of one thing to another space.
Yeah, I could see that. Sure. Absolutely. Okay, cool.
Or gate and door, because a portrait could open the
Ooh.
door to a new, right? Like you're
Yeah,
seeing a portrait that takes you through.
Ah, excellent. Fabulous hypotheses here, guys. Awesome. So what I want to, this is great. We're gonna just stop with we could hypothesize a lot more words. You can let this go for as long as you want with the kids. But what I want to do now is I want us to, if all of these words, if a word has P-O-R-T as a base, then if there's things attached, if there's other letters in the word, we have to account for them. And we have to, and many times, so if whether it's it's a prefix or a suffix or a connector vowel or whatever, we need to be able to account for them to prove that there's actually a P-O-R-T in that word. Okay. So what we might do is start to identify these other meaningful chunks. Okay, if P-O-R-T is our base, then again, the other meaningful chunks that are stuck to it need to be able to be identified. So I want to show you, I'm going to show you something called a word sum. And a word sum allows us to visually see the structure of a word. So I think I want to take reported. So here's our whole spelled out word, correct? We already know how it's spelled. And we said that we're studying this P-O-R-T thing, right? So if I pull out the P-O-R-T, that leaves me with an R-E in the front and an ED behind. So of course, in our work together, since you've been my fifth grade students all year, this is not the first time we've talked about this, nor is it the first time we've talked about prefixes and suffixes. So who recognizes a prefix or a suffix that we've studied?
We recognize re.
You recognize RE, okay? And do you have an idea about meaning? We know that morphemes carry meaning. And so what's our hypothesis about the meaning of RE in reported?
We think it means again.
Okay, again, certainly that's one of the definitions or meanings that we've learned for RE. All right, great. And what about ED? Does anybody remember about ED?
Past tense.
We did learn that it can make a verb mean happened in the past. Sure. Okay. Does that make sense for this word reported in terms of checking the meaning here? All the way back here, when we looked at it, there journalists reported similar scenes of mixed routine and fear. So to bring back or to say again, something about that, some way of indicating that what does a journalist do? They report, right? They tell us about what happened. So I think that that's a appropriate breakdown or showing the structure here of reported. What I would like for you to do is take a turn at this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab this part. Actually, nope, I'm going to grab all of it. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it in our shared document that says word sums. Maybe. Sorry, should have had this up. All right, so what I want you guys to do, and you actually don't have to worry about, you don't have to put it in a specific box. For right now, we can just go like this. So, oh, that's interesting. If you would please go to this this document, and I want you to pick another word. I already did reported. I want you to pick another word where you break down you make the word sum. Does that make sense? Doesn't matter which one, just pick one. I'm going to stop sharing a second so I can bring something up. Oh, you guys don't have edit access?
Yeah. No. Nope.
You can tell me which one you want to do. You can just spell it out for me.
Portal.
Someone already did it. Can you do importance? Okay, I'll type it.
Am I typing?
Yeah, so I am plus port.
Plus P-O-R-T,
I hate these things.
plus
My computer
A-N-C-E. Oh, fabulous. Okay, this is great. This is exactly how most.
I do too.
I know.
Okay, fabulous. So here we've got
10 minutes.
several word sums.
I knew that.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've got several word sums, and I'm going to cut and paste them into a matrix maker. Hopefully. Oh, Lord. All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Matrix Maker. You're super helpful here. Well, apparently we just can't cut and paste things. Update. There we go. Oh, nope, didn't work. Anyway, just for purposes of time's sake, I will teach you how to use the mini matrix maker. But what we would end up with would be something that looks like this, where it would outline for us, given all the words that we typed in, it would show us with P-O-R-T as the center, and here you see H-Y-D-R is the center of this one. But you can see how a word matrix, which is built because we had the word sums, we can now use this to potentially start adding to it as we encounter more words that we want to explore with P-O-R-T as the base. We could just, do lots of different things with this. But since we're essentially out of time, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop right there in terms of what what we can cover today, just so I can give you just so I can kind of hear back from you about any questions that you have. We'll have to continue this the next time that we meet. Thoughts? Do you see where this could be useful?
Yeah, I loved it. I think it's fantastic. And I think it'll be a great opportunity for kids to kind of dig in. And I was super engaged myself, so I can definitely see that kids would be engaged in that process.
Thank you. Yeah, I do too. You'll get kids when you start doing these, you will absolutely get kids coming up to you and saying, I think this portrait, I have no idea if portrait actually has a base, P-O-R-T. I don't know. We would have to go research that. That's why it's called word inquiry, right? So, because if portrait has a P-O-R-T, then it has to have an R-A-I-T suffix or an R-A, right? We have to account for everything, but you'll get kids doing that. I mean, because they start to see that you're going to approach this with the mindset of that, A, you don't know everything as the teacher. And secondly, that we can when we look at words, we're looking for meaningful connections between them. And they truly do start going, oh, I found this. Do you think this is a port? When you could have a space in your classroom that says, words we want to explore, and they can put it on a sticky note and you can, choose to do it right then or not. But as we continue to meet together, next time, what I want to do is build on this and really show you, how did I go about knowing that port was, to carry, or how did I know the Proto-Indo-European root? So I want to show you the tools of how do I find all that out, and also putting up a morpheme wall in your room, a morpheme board where you've got prefixes you've studied, bases that you've studied, suffixes that you've studied, because you're going to see the same prefixes and suffixes all over the place. And you're going to see how they can be meaningful, to words. And I could see this in math. I can see this in science. I mean, so many of our words come from Greek that are math and science, right? And a lot of our words from Latin are in the humanities. And so you're going to see so many productive bases that you can unlock thousands of words sometimes with one base. So that's where we're going with it.
And you're using authentic text, so anybody in any content area could do it.
Yeah.
From what you're already.
I literally went on Newsela and I typed in Ukraine because it was something in the news, right? And you read through any text of any kind of length, it just happened to have importance, imported, whatever the three words were in the same paragraph. Because again, in English, you're going to see the same bases popping up a lot of places. So yeah, that's why I love it, for all those reasons.
Mary wanted to share something real quick.
And I got to witness a quick word study in anatomy. So upper level class, anatomy class today specifically was about brain anatomy. And the teacher mentioned, what is arbor vitae? And no one could answer. Even arbor day, trees, vitae, they couldn't answer. But It's the tree of life, it's the cerebellum tree of life. And it was just interesting that there's a classroom of juniors and seniors, and
they couldn't even make a good guess as to what that, right? Yeah, and that's exactly because I don't know about you, but all of my when I was getting ready to take the ACT is when somebody said to me, oh, go study all the Greek and Latin roots, right? I mean, that is literally the time that I got exposed to the fact that there's these things in words, right? I mean, I'm talking beyond like ing, ed, s, you know, beyond your basic prefixes and suffixes, and when to use a semicolon, right, Ashley? Good. They're really important things. And so this, if we were doing this with kids, you can do this with kids, I'm not kidding you, like in kindergarten, because can they understand what a suffix s is? Do they need to understand that a suffix s is not the same thing as just a regular old s? Yeah, they need to understand that. It has meaning. It does something to a base. And so if we start this early on, it'll just, I mean, it's great for our English language learners. It's great for everybody. You know, nobody's going to be harmed when you start to do this investigation. So is anyone else trying to think of words that have port? Exactly. So, you know, feel free to add to the word sums page, you know, and next time we meet, we can see how, and also again, like, well, we could talk about, do we need 3 different matrices for the 3 meanings of port? Do we want to put them all on one? Does that make sense? You know, there's just so much, oh, David's got a cheat thing for you. There's just so much that you can decide to do as a teacher or not, and how deeply you want to go is totally up to you. But you will have kids totally latch onto this, and it will be something that they'll say, I want to explore this, or what's the base of this word? I mean, you kind of open up like Pandora's box when you start to do this in a good way. Kids are actually invested. You see how this is like too, rather than like, you know, vocabulary resources out there that are like Wordly Wise or whatever, as well intentioned as they are, and it gives you a structured way to study things. Some of the words aren't necessarily related to each other, and then the kids don't necessarily carry that in. Do they generalize that into their everyday work, or, you know what I'm saying? So when you use authentic experiences, it's just kids just connect with it better. There's a story there. Okay. Sorry, we couldn't get through all of it. We will, to be continued. All right, so Ashley and Lauren, did these guys want to still meet? Because if so, I can let them use my Zoom if they want to.